We are joined by grappling world champion Janine Mutton. She won the gold medal in the women's gi grappling and a bronze in the women's nogi grappling, both in the 64 kilo division at the UWW Grappling World Championships, which were held, in Warsaw, Poland, from August 21st to the 24th. How are you doing, Janine?
Pretty good. How are you?
I'm good. How does it feel to be a world champion and a world bronze medalist?
Well, honestly, this one felt pretty good. I had a lot to overcome through the summer actually. So this one meant a lot. I've competed in a lot of other organizations, like specifically IBJJF, the JJIF, and then this one now, the UWW. I mean, to put it into perspective, like they're all competitive, they're all prestigious. So I don't think one necessarily had like better people than the other overall. I think they all brought their own class of like really tough athletes. But this time, like I just came back from a torn ACL, and not really coming back, but like my ACL is not there. So it's just it was torn and it's torn. We're good. So this one feels good. It felt like a lot of the hardship that I went through and a lot of just like losing and having like a bad mental state coming back into it kind of wiped the slate clean in Poland.
Very interesting. We're gonna get into that, the injury and how you overcame all that and how you competed and won. But in terms, obviously, you said you competed at JJIF tournament, IBJJF tournament, and now with the UW Grappling World Championships. Of course, all of them are prestigious. No doubt they bring a ton of talent from all over the world. What I'm curious to know, in terms of this tournament, what if you were to compare it to all those other ones, not so much in terms of level of competition, but the overall experience, everything but the competition, what were your main observations from this tournament? How it was run, essentially.
I feel like the UWW, like, I mean, the only thing I will say is some of the information I felt was like cryptic. It was like hidden, but it almost made it so that you could just focus on being the athlete instead of worrying about exactly who you're going to fight. And you can worry about that like the last day, but you can't jump around brackets. You're like, whatever weight division you're supposed to compete in, you're going to compete in. And you don't know the roster of athletes until they do the draw the night before. So for me, I found that to be helpful because I could just worry about doing my whole prep the whole way through. And then the night before I see the draw, I'm not worried about who's in my division beforehand. Who's my first draw? I can look them up and I can study a little bit the night before and kind of get a game plan in my head. So I liked that the draw was last minute without even having a roster. To me, I don't know, for the mystery kind of makes it a little bit easier for me to just show up and do my thing. Sometimes you build up like a name or something in your head. Like a couple times I fought Tata Ribeiro. She's from Checkmat and she's out of she's Brazilian, but she lives in the States. And one time I was gonna fight her and I really built this big thing up in my head. I lost her pretty quickly, but I knew that wasn't myself. And then the next time I fought her, I actually had a really good match. So I really like I was kind of like hidden. That's like one of the before competition things, but beyond that, like the actual like the hotel, the food, like catering to the athletes there, man, I thought that was awesome. And that's something that between the UWW and the JJIF, they do it really well. I would say like the two of them are very aligned in terms of their wanting to make sure the athlete is served, essentially. Right. You feel like a rock star when you're there. You feel like a professional athlete. And everything just feels like over the top. Whereas in the IBJJF, although it is a prestigious title, you're paying to sign up to go there. You're paying for your room. You're paying for like an Airbnb of sorts or whatever. Like there's not like a one common place for all the athletes to go, for all the athletes to check in. Like, yeah, you show up the day of the tournament. But I just felt like this, I don't know, you feel, it feels like you're being treated like a pro athlete, You have like the draw the night before. It's almost like the press conference for like UFC or something like that, Right. So it was very happily, I don't even know how to describe it. Just like it was a nice feeling to be treated the proper way as an athlete. You put in all the work, right?
how does that impact an athlete's overall well-being when you know what I mean? They're being taken care of. How does that enhance their experience of a tournament, or does that how does that impact performance?
I feel like so we'll throw a couple comparisons out there. So in Poland it was good because number one, like a lot of the foods like traditional Polish food, which there's fish, there's chicken, there's pork, there's rice, there's potatoes, and so on. So you're getting a lot of foods that you typically eat on a diet anyway. There's lots of salad there. So to have one less thing to worry about is where am I going to find food? How much is food going to cost? Is there only like a convenience store near me?
Right.
And I can only buy Gatorade and cookies, like there's nothing available. Or I'm gonna buy a can of tuna. So that worry wasn't there. So I feel like it gives you the opportunity to really just stay focused on the mission. Now again, UWW was in Poland, so that was awesome. This year I'll just go back and jump back to JJIF. This year they had it in Mongolia, and Mongolia was a very cool experience. However, I feel like because of the way the country is, I don't really know if it's classified as a third world country or not, but it's kind of like sandwiched in between China and Russia.
Right.
I'm pretty sure nobody's importing anything from Russia right now. So a lot of the things that you'd eat there, it's like mystery meat and stuff. So I mean, it made us very grateful to be from Canada, but that put a little bit more stress on somebody like me who is very regimented. I eat like 5 or 6 meals a day, like concrete, like the exact same thing all the time. So that made it a little bit more stressful. So having like in Poland, having the hotel and the food that was available to everyone, it was the same thing consistently. They didn't run out. They didn't use like old food and heat it up. That was really good. That made it easy.
Interesting. Now, in terms of before we get into the competition portion, just curious to know, in terms of your journey into jiu-jitsu, can you take us back to the moment where you first fell in love with jiu-jitsu? What was it about this martial art that captivated you and propelled you into pursuing it at a competitive level?
Okay, well, I don't really have like a romantic, I needed to find something because I was lost in life and blah, blah, blah. But I was always a competitive athlete. So
what sport?
Growing up, I played soccer okay. I started soccer when I was 9. When I was like 10 or 11, I decided I wanted to try out for the rep team. So I made the team. We made it to the Premier League for the girls. It was called CGSL at the time. And then when you made it to the next level, it's called OYSL, Ontario Youth Soccer League. So it's like a little bit higher than Premier. So we kind of went up the ranks through that. I played for Darlington. We had an awesome coach. I had an awesome goalie coach. I was actually the goalie. I was the shortest person on the team, but I was the goalie.
Cool.
So that was
you
cool,
probably have a vertical. You can probably fly, right?
I can fly.
Yeah, nice.
I'm a flying squirrel. That's why I can like jump on the back so fast. No, I'm kidding. And then when soccer took a turn, my parents split up, and like you go through things as a teenager. So I kind of fell out of soccer, fell in love with the gym and started competing in bodybuilding, like fitness and figure. And in the midst of that, I started competing in freestyle BMX, and that was like, if I could go back and I could do one thing, and that would be the thing I would do for a career or whatever, I think that BMX would be like up there on the list. Like I love jiu-jitsu, but if my body could take it, man, like that was a rush. That was one time in my life, or any time I would be on my bike, going off a jump, you're in the air. Like I can't describe the level of freedom that you feel in that moment. So like that was really cool.
Isn't that an Olympic sport?
It is. I think they did racing for quite a while, and then I think that the freestyle came in recently. Yeah, they didn't even have women's category for X Games, so they used to do like a women's demo. Okay. But yeah, now like the women are doing the same thing as the guys. Like for a while, like you would never see a girl do like a flare or like a whip, and now they're doing them. They're doing everything.
I don't even know what the flare or whip means, but I would imagine it's like a flip or something like that. Or...
Yeah, it's kind of like a how do I describe it? It's like an alley-oop flip
Oh
on when
wow.
you're going up the ramp, and it looks like you're
You're going backwards. You're
you
like
know
a
when they draw those like dotted lines of like a butterfly
yeah, yeah, yeah.
flying, and it
Mhm.
looks like that.
Wow.
So like a flare essentially looks like
Okay.
that.
Did
Only a
you
person
ever
and a bike.
incredible? Did you ever I'm sure falls are common in that sport. Did you ever have any bad falls?
Yeah, I actually I kind of based my decision to continue competing in fitness and bodybuilding on one really bad fall, and
Okay.
also because uh, I always kind of assess the lifestyle and the quality of life of people who do one thing or another. Like for example, career wise, like I chose not to be a police officer because I saw the quality of life of some of the people who worked in the profession, and that kind of like made me rethink it. For BMX, I would watch like videos of Matt Hoffman and like him not being able to like speak properly because he had so many concussions.
Wow.
Or like I saw another guy, Mike Aiken. He's incredible. He learned how to walk again after a really bad fall, but literally learned how to walk again from
Wow.
nothing. And like it's really inspiring because you just fall down and get back up. But in the short time I competed in BMX, I broke my wrist, I broke my foot, I feel like I broke my head. Lots of cuts, lots of shin damage. I'd have to wear shin pads because my pedals would hit and my shins got so sensitive. We used to have a thing called swellbo, so like you'd hit your elbow off the ground and it would just swell up right away.
Damn.
But the worst fall I had, I was trying to do a trick. I hit a trick off of the step up at Joyride. It's in Markham. It's an indoor bike park there. It's awesome. It's family owned, and it's like the riders that work there, they help like build it and make it better. Man, place is awesome. It's like a ski hill for BMX. So I was going off this jump. I was trying to do a tuck no hander, which is a trick where you tuck the handlebars into your belly and you let both your hands off the bike.
Okay.
So I landed it and I was so pumped. My friend didn't get it on camera, so I wanted to do it again. So I went to go do it again, and this time I was like, this time it's gonna be the sickest thing ever. So
Right.
I went full send. I hit the nose of my tire. Excuse me. And then I went face first into the ramp. And
Damn.
all I could think, I was like, man, I don't know, just like you have to get off of the ramp because someone's coming behind you. So I like jumped off the ramp, and then it was just like a quick blackout. And then I'm like, man, like I can't see.
Wow. That
Yeah,
sounds crazy. Sorry. It sounds like
yes,
an extreme sport, obviously. But damn,
yeah.
that sounds I'm very unfamiliar with that sport. I'm gonna have to watch some clips after this this interview just to kind of see the risk. It seems very, very risky. Obviously, you're wearing a helmet and you've got elbow pads and all that sort of stuff. But it's interesting. So you went from soccer to BMX to bodybuilding, to fitness competitions.
Yeah, the fitness was kind of in the middle of it all, and then the
Okay.
BMX was in the middle of the fitness.
Say that again. Sorry.
So I started competing in figure and fitness when I was like 17.
Okay.
So I started riding BMX when I was 18. So I rode
Okay.
BMX until I was about 22, 23,
Okay.
right before I started jiu-jitsu.
What a really interesting sort of trajectory of sports that you went on from fitness to BMX from soccer to fitness to BMX to jiu-jitsu. That's fascinating. I've never heard someone with such a, because they all vary. They're all very distinct and unique sort of sports. And I gather you probably have a lot of that when you mention you're very regimented with your eating. I think that comes from your fitness and your bodybuilding days, I think.
Yeah, I think it's a mix. I think when I was talking about my coach from soccer, like he had us like very disciplined from a young age. So when we were like 14, 15, 16, when I was 16, I moved to another team and then all hell broke loose. But when I was on this team, the coach's name was Dave Staley. He's actually the coach at Durham College now. And man, he was like, if you eat sugar or you eat bad and I find out about it 24 hours before the game, you won't play because we don't want to see you play like shit. We want to see you
Wow.
playing properly, putting a good effort. So he would send like recommendations for us. He had a coach to teach us how to run, not just to tell us to run, but to teach us how to run properly with good mechanics. Wow. So he put a lot of effort into really breaking things down, like right from like the core. And we were doing Pilates classes. So, and like, man, he was a good coach. He was hard on us, but he was a very good coach. So the bodybuilding thing was like the discipline and the regiment that I needed to feel like I was in soccer, right? So that was that kind of like helped me fall back in place, because again, I was doing that as a teen, and then when my parents split up, like I had a really hard time between the time I was like 16 and right in the, until I was like 17 and a half. So about 18 months of brutality. Sorry, Bob.
No, this is I appreciate your honesty here. I realize we're talking about some personal things, of course, but I appreciate all that. I think it gives us kind of perspective on in regards to your story into the sport. So now let's talk in detail about your experience at the UWW Grappling World Championships. We want to hear about each of your matches, starting with the Nogi portion. Tell us what you recall and lead us through your matches. And I'm curious about that semi-final match and that that call by the ref, if you could clarify that. But I guess once we get into it, you'll be able to tell us about that.
Okay. So my first match, I had 4 matches per day. So in the Nogi, my first match was against a girl from Germany. So I studied her matches the night before. I was able to like identify a couple holes that she had or things that I could capitalize on. So I made my strategy based on that. I really wanted to work on wrestling because because I tore my ACL, a lot of the things I've been doing is just playing half guard from the bottom for jiu-jitsu. And for me, like, although it's a strong guard for me, it's a very defensive guard. So you're letting people get really close. So I wanted to go back to like a strong place where I'd be on my feet or land on top and pass, where I feel like very confident in my game. So I was able to capitalize on a takedown exactly how I had planned it. She gave her back for a moment, and then we ended up back on the mat. So I just kind of stayed there and worked my way trying to pass. I didn't manage to pass, but the stalling calls were very fast. So like in 10 seconds, if you didn't make like a visible progression, even if you were attacking a submission, if you didn't like at least sell that you were going to break that arm or something like that, they're going to give you a call. So at some point I had a kimura and they're going to give me a penalty, and I'm like, oh crap, I gotta let it go, I gotta do something else. So I won that match by points. My second match, I was losing a little bit of the hand fight battle in wrestling.
This is with the Ukrainian?
Yes, I didn't think I was doing that bad, but I was getting penalized for inactivity. Like again, the stalling calls were coming very fast. I thought that I was doing okay controlling the center, but maybe my hands were a little bit inactive, I guess. I'm not sure. Again, like the rule set's new to me. So I was losing the battle. So I dropped down for a straight ankle lock. I just felt like she's pressuring so far forward that I should just sit right in the groove. And so she did. So I dropped down for the ankle lock. I did that. It's one of the ankle locks I do like pretty regularly on various people, whether it's in training or in competitions elsewhere. So kind of like it's perfect. And then in my semifinal match, I fought Meshi from Israel, and I have been waiting for this fight for so long. Like in Mongolia, I was supposed to fight her, but then I believe they changed the bracket the night before, so I ended up not fighting her, and I have been waiting for this. So
why is that? Why were you anticipating? Have you fought her before, or?
No, but she's always been in my division, just on another side of the bracket. And she's known for having a game very similar, well, a 50-50 or footlock game. And I feel like my 50-50 footlock game is very strong as well. So I was really anxious to see, can I beat her at her own game by playing the same game or a different one. But I was really excited to fight somebody who I knew was like world class, because she's a big name. So and she won world games as well in jiu-jitsu. So that's a big deal. So she won world games. anticipated this fight. We're tied in score. I went for a submission off of I believe she had a half guard, and I went for a straight arm lock and then threw like a top lock triangle or like a reverse triangle on. And as I was doing this, I ended up on the bottom with the straight arm lock attempt. And although it was defended, which is why you'd have to turn, I figured I would get a point for that. I didn't. And then because she came up, it gave the 2 points. So it doesn't matter if you attack a submission. Like in IBJJF, that's an advantage. In ADCC, attacking a submission to end up on the bottom, there's no points. You don't get penalized for attacking a submission like as a progression. Whereas in UWW, you're penalized because you end up on your back, and they really try to award the top player. So at this time, that ended up tying the score. And like I said, because I didn't get the advantage for or the point for the submission attempt, it kind of evened us out there. And I got another stalling call, I think. But yeah, it was really weird. Like I was getting stalling calls pretty quickly, and other people weren't getting them at all. We tried to contest it, but we weren't able to. And then what was funny was, so Meshi actually fought one of the girls in the final, Shalia from the US. And in the final, Meshi went for a toe hold. She didn't get the point for it. And then at the end, the score was tied. So they contested it, and they said that you can't contest a submission to me. But then when they contested it in the final, they still contested it. So they were able to overturn the decision so that Meshi won by 1 point. So then I was like, interesting, because had we had known that we could just continue arguing and then eventually somebody would contest the submission attempt, maybe I would have gotten that point. But for me, like, I'm not a sore loser. So, even though I lost that match, I was like, okay, well, I still have an opportunity to win the bronze for this one. So let's just chalk it up to that. And then the next girl I fought, she was from Lithuania.
Right.
Julia, and it's very funny. My husband has a Lithuanian passport.
Oh wow!
Go figure, right? So I'm like, oh, I'm fighting my husband's cousin.
What is he from Lithuania?
No, he's from Brazil.
So how did he get a Lithuanian passport? What's the story?
His grandma was from Lithuania, moved to Brazil, never changed any document.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay. So for actually a few years, that actually enabled him to travel like all over without having to get a US visa, because that's pretty hard when you have a Brazilian passport.
Right.
So
right.
Yeah. So she
Very
was
cool.
like his angel.
Very cool. Has he been back to Lithuania?
He's never been to Lithuania before.
Okay. Wow.
We have a consulate here though. So yeah.
Right. Interesting.
But yeah, so I went to go fight this girl, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to fight Ibor's cousin. I had no idea who she was. And that's where I got the dog bar, the knee bar from the top half and the over under.
Okay.
And that match was sick, because like that's 100% what I do in training. Over under passing, and then like the knee bar from top. It's something I hit again regularly, like the foot lock thing. And it just felt like, wow, okay, whew. Some of the stress is like drifted off. I won the match is over. Okay, let's go. Come to find out later, she's a very successful UFC fighter who's been on like a win streak.
Oh wow, is she?
Yeah.
Let me Google her. Sorry, I'm just I'm looking. I'm on the World UWW Grappling website, and I have all the. Oh yeah, she is. You're right. Wow.
Yeah, I didn't know. My students from the school, they're like, "Hey, I know that girl." She
Wow.
And then they send like a highlight of her fights.
That's
and
incredible.
Yeah, it's crazy. Incredible. So that was pretty cool.
How did it feel to win that match? You just described you feeling like there was a lot of pressure at that moment, but you got the bronze medal. What was the first thought that crossed your mind as she tapped and you won the match? What were you thinking?
I guess like the biggest thing is like relief. The relief to feel like comfortable in my game, or comfortable competing in my own skin again. And that's been something that I don't know if I've put like really high expectations on myself, or coming back from the injury has made me almost make the wrong decision. I'm not sure how to describe it, but like, sorry, I was kind of lost.
When you say make the wrong decision, you mean coming back into competition, being the wrong decision?
Coming like while I'm competing, while I'm fighting, making a bad decision, like making a bad choice, I'll give up 2 points, let's say. So for example, let's say I'm I'm on top and I'm winning by 3 points or 3 advantages. And all I have to do is stay on top. And if I stay on top, I'm going to win. But there's an arm there. So I feel like maybe if I go for that arm bar, I can get that. And with Meshi, I was going to win if I just stayed on top. I was winning by 2 points. So in that last 30 seconds, all I had to do was just be smart, stay on top. And I just was, what word am I looking for to describe it? I just like, I rushed it. And it's like, I jumped the gun. And that's one thing that I have learned about myself, that I thrive when I'm structured and when I'm patient. And when I'm not patient and I'm impatient, sometimes I put myself in a vulnerable place where I don't need to rush. It's unnecessary, essentially. So being in that moment in the bronze medal match and being able to win, it was awesome because, again, I didn't feel rushed, and I'm finishing. I submitted her in I believe a minute and a half. So that was like, wow, like, okay, all the decision making I just did there was methodical, one thing by one thing, and just found exactly what I needed.
Were you confident on day one going into this tournament? Did you think you were going to make the podium?
I didn't know. I wasn't sure how my body would feel. I wasn't sure how my mind was going to be. I actually took a lot of pressure off myself, I think, going into the first day because of how badly I performed in Mongolia. And like for the JJIF, like I'm a 2-time world champion in the JJIF as well. So coming back as like the returning world champion and having such a terrible performance, that really put me, it kind of put me back a step because I was not confident in myself. And I was worried about making, I think the right way to put it is I was worried about making the same mistakes that I made in Mongolia again. And again, being impatient, right? And trying to rush. I'm like, oh man, I don't want to make the same mistake. So what if I just do this? But no. Take it a step back, take a deep breath, one thing at a time. So confidence wise, I definitely would say it was on a low. And we've been running around like a rat race here at home. So training wise, I was just trying to do my best. I actually just took 2 weeks off of training before that because I was really feeling burnt out. I was skipping training in the morning just to stay home and sleep. I wasn't sure if like my adrenal glands were messed up or my hormones were messed up, but for 2 weeks, I didn't train. I competed on the weekends, but I didn't train during the week. So yeah, confidence was definitely not high. I was just like, I'll just try my best.
I have on the point of confidence, I have a question in regards to mental toughness. I think we're kind of headed in that. We're kind of discussing that. Can you talk about a time when you faced a mental barrier and how you broke through it? How did that experience sculpt your mental toughness for competition? And follow up to that, have you ever sought, sorry for all these personal questions, but
no, I'm happy to answer them.
Sports psychologist or a mental coach or any of that sort of performance coaching sort of coaching?
So a time where I had a breakthrough, man, in Poland, I actually had a breakthrough on the second day because my first 2 matches in the gi, man, I fought terribly. And I was feeling like, I think it's because I drank too much coffee and ate too much food.
Okay. Well, what did you eat?
I was feeling,
what did you eat?
I ate, well, I had some eggs. I had bread. What else did I have? I don't know. I ate a little bit extra that day because I knew that I was done dieting now. Like once I had made weight, I was good. And a little bit too much coffee. And the coffee in Poland is strong because Europeans drink like espresso. So It's a little bit more than just your Tim Hortons coffee. So that really like set me off. Like I had anxiety. I was like my heart was going like this. And my teammate, she's like, do you want to warm up? And I'm like, no, I want to calm down. So I want to do everything I can to like bring myself down a little bit, because right now I can't go up. I got to stay here. I got to bring it down. So my first match, I fought a girl from Kazakhstan, and man, like the beginning of the match, like I fought this girl before, JJAF. I've beaten her before. It was a close match, but I won. And then I started fighting, and I felt like I was fighting back in Mongolia. And I was like, oh God, like this is gonna be the same thing. Like, please God, like bring me clarity. This is like, I don't want to be this person. I want to be clear. I want to be myself. And after the match, I was like, what am I doing, man? I have to figure out what the heck is going on, because I'm not acting right. So I won my first match. I ended up sweeping and taking the back, but not after basically going all over the place, and like terrible jiu-jitsu. Wasn't me. Terrible grappling. Now my second match, I fought a girl from USA.
US, right.
And she like appeared to be one of the matches that should have been like, I don't want to say easy, but should have been like somebody who I could like walk all over based on skill differences, right? But again, like I never underestimate people, so I'm always ready to like give them a war. You have to be like that, because you never know who's going to be ready on what day, because they could be just stronger up here than I am, and that could give the edge, right? So I was having a harder time with her than I thought. And again, like I just found myself like anxious and like trying to force things that weren't there, instead of like seeing the opportunity that was directly in front of me. And like I'm asking for clarity, right? I'm asking for clarity, and the clarity is there, and I'm choosing not to see it. So in the final like 4 seconds, I ended up getting a submission, and like I got off the mat, and I sat down beside my training partner and my teammate Trika, and I just started crying, and I'm like, man, what am I doing? Like, what is this? Like, what's wrong with me? Like, I can't, I don't feel myself. Like, I just need to feel okay. Like, I need to feel right. And then the semifinals were coming, and I was going to fight the girl from Germany that I fought the day before. And again, I only beat her by 2 points. So I beat her by a takedown. It wasn't like a landslide. So I was like, okay, like it's going to be a tough match. And she had just beaten Meshi, who's the girl that I lost to by the decision.
Right.
So I'm like, okay, well, maybe she's turned it up, and today she's like having a better day.
Maybe she's more comfortable. Sorry, maybe she's more comfortable in gi. Could that be it too?
Yeah, and I'm thinking, oh well, maybe this is her strong suit. I'm not sure. So instead of like worrying about that, I just said like, Trika, you know what? I want to work on passing like some coyote guard, which is the guard that she likes to play. It's a variation of half guard. And I just want to work on passing that a little bit. So I did a couple drills, like dead drills, very slow, no reaction. And like, again, I kept my heart rate down. The coffee had worn off by then because it'd been a couple hours later. But anyway, in the match, I pulled and was in close guard, and then it was just like something finally like clicked, and then the patience and the clarity like came back to me. And it's weird, like you don't want to shut it off, but it wasn't turned on those first 2 matches. And then I did better against her, who was a tougher opponent than the first 2 girls, than I did in the whole tournament. That was probably my best match. I didn't submit her, but I hit like a very like day 1 pendulum sweep directly to mount. And yeah, one of the best matches. And to be honest with you, I don't even know if I can ever watch that match again, because I tried to stream it and I couldn't find it. But that's a match I'd love to watch again, because I feel like that was when like everything connected again.
You tried to stream it on their website, on the UWW website?
I tried to stream it on the YouTube channel, but they took it off of the live feed, so they might have put it up on their website. So I'll check later, but
yeah, I think all your matches should be available there on their website, because there's they prompt you to subscribe. I don't know if it's part of their UWW Plus deal that they have now, because they launched a new a new streaming service for like the current World Championships that's happening in Serbia. But yeah, you beat her name is the German is Antonia Gamila Canu. I don't know if I'm mispronouncing your last name. 6-2. You beat her 6-2. And what submission did you beat the American Emily Grace Hauser with? I think you said you submitted her.
I think
did you submit her?
Yeah, in the last 3 seconds.
Okay. Do you remember what submission it was? Just curious.
It was either an armbar or a triangle.
So yeah. from you know how you're describing, you had this moment of clarity. And it's, by the way, this is really this is fascinating what you're describing here in a very transparent sort of way. You know, you're talking about what's going on in your brain, you know, as you're progressing through the tournament. And I think anyone who's watching this could appreciate your honesty and how you were feeling, you know, the emotional ups and down, I guess, of tournaments, right? And all that pressure. But people might be curious to know, for context, what actually happened in Ulaanbaatar in Mongolia. If we can go back to that for context, because you said you if it's okay with you, you said you didn't perform well there. What happened?
So in Mongolia, I wasn't even like I won the trip, and the biggest thing was, as I said, I really want to just go and experience Mongolia, irregardless if I can compete or not. I was gonna make a game time decision the day of. If I didn't feel right getting off the plane, I was gonna decide, like, you know what, I don't think I should compete, just because my knee was still, I think it was only 12 weeks after the full tear of my ACL. Wow. So I was like, you know, I'm feeling okay, but I'm still holding back in training. I'm still not giving 100% in my training. So I was going to make do with what I was able to do. Right. So just overcome the situation to the best I could. The day came to compete, and I was like, okay, let's go. Let's do it. But, you know, jet lag, getting there and having to fight on the last day. So the longer you stay, for me anyways, whenever we go to Abu Dhabi, if I fight the first day, I'm set. If I fight the last day, every single day that I'm in Abu Dhabi longer than I need to be, I just start getting like these really bad headaches. I can't sleep properly. Like I said, the jet lag's brutal, and it just takes away from your overall health. So a lot of people are getting to some of these countries like a week or a month or 2 weeks ahead of time. And because they have that edge to like customize themselves, they don't go through that brutal jet lag. And I'm not saying that that's why I lost. I definitely lost because I wasn't the better competitor that day. But another thing is I was going to Mongolia, and how it works here, usually when you're competing in, let's say, IBJJF, you're competing for a team. You're not competing for your country. You're competing for a team. So the clubs here, I'm not going to say like they're political by any means, but I was on one team who's one of the bigger teams here in Canada, and I competed at PANS. I competed against Fionn Davies. If you're not sure who she is, she's currently like IBJJF Black Belt World Champion, the ADCC champion 2 times in a row. Is it 2 times in a row, or is this her first year? No, Bia Basilia won last time. So yeah, so this is her first time winning ADCC. But man, like, she's an incredible athlete. And I had a match with her at PANS, and I lost 2-0. So again, a close match. So it put it into perspective, like where I'm at. And I'm like, man, like if this girl just won everything and I'm like literally biting at the ankles to be the number one, then I have to do everything I can do to be that number one, right? Without, you know, stepping on people's toes and being like a piece of crap or anything, like still being a good person along the way. But I decided to leave the team that I was with. And I didn't start there, but in like my first couple months of training as a white belt, I joined that gym. So I'd been from white to black belt at this academy. And I decided as a black belt that I wanted to leave. And the coach that I was with from white to black, he was the head coach of the team in Mongolia. And so, again, like I don't want to sound like a bad person or I'm blaming anyone, but there was like a trust issue there in terms of coaching as well. Like, so when you're talking about like being in the right headspace before you compete, so you're jet lagged, you have a headache, haven't slept properly in days, you just cut weight. The food in Mongolia, like I'd get to the buffet and all the rice would be gone. So there's no rice. So you're eating. So not eating properly. And for me, again, like I'm so regimented that when you take those things away, it's not just that it takes away from your overall health, but it takes away from up here.
Right.
So my first match, I lost by an advantage to a girl that usually competes in a higher weight division than me. She usually competes in IBJJF at 69 kilos. And her name's Kira Sung. She's from Korea. So I lost to her by an advantage. I lost to her by ref's decision in 2019 as well in the semifinals. And she won that year. So it was like, okay, cool. Well, you're going to put two world champions against each other in the first round. That sucks, but that's okay. Again, I'm there to fight everybody, right? I have to beat everybody in order to win. So I lost by an advantage. And then the next match I had was against a German girl. I think a German girl again. And I beat her in like less than a minute. I got an armbar. And the beginning of the match was really messy. Again, the same description I can give you about my match that I had with the girl from Kazakhstan is it just started out like I was erratic and not myself. But in under a minute, I found a submission. So it couldn't all be that bad. But getting off the mat, like as soon as I got that submission, I tried to just like poker face and be like, okay, like we're here and we're here to stay. We're going to like, we might not win gold today, but we're here. And then I left the mat and the old coach kind of how he spoke to me really affected me mentally. And he said, like you look dead. What are you doing? Like, what's wrong with you? And just kind of that commentary to put in my head and make me question, like, he goes, do you even want to be here? And this is after I submitted the girl in the second match. And then I'm like, of course I want to be here. And then I'm backstage and I'm crying right before my next match and like getting emotional, letting emotions take over, which is what you don't want as an athlete. But this commentary kind of like took over me. And then I ended up going into the next match. I came up for a sweep. Everything was okay. The girl tried to sink a clock choke. And like all I had to do was like let go. And then I was defending it. And all I had to do was just turn my head out. And then I'm in this like position where all I have to do is like over my face. It's not even choking me. And then I asked myself, do I want to be here right now?
Oh, wow. You asked yourself that.
I have never given up and never given up because I didn't have the heart. I have always won, not because I'm better than people at jiu-jitsu, but because I had more heart than them and I wanted it more. So to have a moment where like your number one tool, for me, my number one tool is like tenacity and like the want to win. Like that was gone.
Wow.
Yeah, that was brutal. And then it carried into the next time I competed. The next time I competed again, I rushed things, was erratic. And like in the back of my head, it's like, I'm telling myself like, you do want to be here. You do want to be here. You do want to be here. But there is like some weird darkness in the background. Like, do you even want to be here? Is he right? Should you just give up? Like, do you want to like, what's like, should you just stop training because your knee's messed up? Should you take 6 months off? Should you have a surgery? All of these things start running through your head. So I'm literally trying to convince myself that I really do love what I do, because I do. But when you're under stress, when you're competing, like it takes you into a different place. So,
yeah,
you gotta be tough.
It sounds like there was like the doubt was making itself present, right? Like that self-doubt. Do you and I'm sorry to ask this way, but do you regret going to Mongolia and competing?
No, because it showed me what I needed to overcome and showed me weaknesses that I had. And a lot of weaknesses that I had were self-doubt And just letting people affect my well-being when they don't deserve to. Um, and that was one thing that when Trika and I were waiting for the final, we were waiting for the final, and some people were around and talking. And at some point, like I was in the middle of her and someone else talking.
Sorry,
And I said, like,
this is in Poland? This is in Warsaw?
in Poland, yeah.
Okay, so we're teleporting now from Ulaanbaatar to Warsaw.
Yeah,
okay.
We just went across the pond. So
yes.
Now we're back in Poland, and like this is like while I'm waiting for the final to happen.
Against a Polish player. Sorry to interrupt. Against Sandra Junia Piniak. I'm sorry if I mispronounced the name, but yeah.
Yes. So against Poland, and I'm like in this like Zen state, and I'm like, somebody's like, hey, and Aiden goes, hey, do you need anything? And I'm like, he's like, do you want like a Gatorade or something? I said, sure, that'd be awesome. So he goes to get a Gatorade, and a couple people were coming by, like teammates, and I'm like, I said, Trika, honestly, I just want to sit quietly with you. I don't want to go anywhere. I just want to sit by ourselves. So, if anybody starts coming over and wanting to have a conversation or anything, if I get up and leave, like, I just want you to know I'm okay. I just want to be with myself. Right. So like making realizations as to like what I need as a person or as a competitor, to be in that like sort of like Zen state, to be happy and content. Like that was important, and I sort of came to that realization there. So that was cool. I don't regret going to Mongolia at all. I think that taught me a lot, and I think that going to Poland with just Trika, who at the time was just a blue belt for my team, a very good blue belt who I just promoted actually on Saturday to purple, but nonetheless, like it was just her and I there. We had our team, but to support each other coaching, it was the two of us. So like I just had to like believe in myself and trust that she's there to help tell me the time, the score, and just listen for her voice if I need to hear something, right? So yeah, being able to like trust my internal thoughts and my internal commentary, to perform properly, like man, like I really think like I found that when I was on day 2.
What sort of rituals or things do you do to kind of to document your thoughts and prepare yourself mentally for major tournaments? Because from what you're describing here, like I'm not an expert, I'm just a fan, but I'm hearing this and I'm like, wow, it's like your brain, there's so much going on. There's like a drama / thriller / soap opera in that brain, the way you're describing the scenario, and it's an emotional roller coaster. What in terms of what are the takeaways from that experience overall from Ulaanbaatar, as far as do you write, do you have a sports diary or journal, or what do you do now to kind of reintegrate yourself in a more positive internal dialogue, I guess?
I think it's always changing. I don't think there's ever a time where I've done the exact same thing, because I think that you have to listen to where you're at in life as well. So sometimes, like, for example, I was talking about on the second day how I was like, I don't want to warm up. I need to bring myself down. I don't want to go up. But there's times where I'm really mellow and I need to like turn it on because I'm too slow. However, those times are better because those are the times where I'm more patient, where it's like I'm lacking the punch, but that will cause me to think a little bit less erratically, and it'll make me slow down, be methodical, and not make mistakes. So I think you have to take like you have to be realistic with what you're feeling on that day. So again, like those 2 matches that I had that were making me feel like really anxious and not good, I couldn't warm up. And then before the semifinal, I made the conscious decision, yeah, I want to work on this and just do those dead drills. So I was content with where I was at. And then I was kind of in that Zen state, like I said, before the final. That was good. The day before, I did need to warm up because I felt like I really wanted to be able to just like react when I needed to. And although that worked really well for me, and carried me to the semifinal. In the semifinal, I lost on technicalities, and by being tied on score. I think overall, I was like exact opposite of myself on each day. One day I was warming up hard, to be able to do my thing. The next day I was trying to like bring myself down to another level. And I've been in the situation as well before where I've needed to do like 4 or 5 rolls of 6 minutes before I did my first match. And then I had the best performance I ever had. Like, for example, when I was a brown belt, I competed at the IBJJF Euros. And I was a brown belt for all of 3 weeks, I think. And I was really, I came off of a good season as a purple belt, but my Nogi Worlds, I medaled at Nogi Worlds the first year as a purple belt. And then in like month 17 as a purple belt, because I was only a purple belt for about a year and a half. The last month I competed at Nogi Worlds, I lost by like 25-2, and I got guillotined. And it was just me like being in a different planet. And I can't describe that, like how that ended up happening, because like 3 weeks earlier, I was in Abu Dhabi and I got bronze at the Worlds. And then the year before I had won the Worlds, and so I'm on this roll, and then I go to Nogi Worlds and I completely tank it. So I'm like, what the heck? I get promoted. I don't even think I deserve it. Go to Euros. And like I said, I was like, I need to make sure that I have a proper warm up so that I do everything like at the right time. So I did 4 or 5 rounds, 6 minutes with partners that I trusted or competed a few days before. My first match, I ended up winning, I think it was 12-0. And then my second match, I won. Where did I fight my second match? The second match was really hard. I won 3-0 against a girl from Sweden, maybe. And then my third match, I fought a girl from Greece. And then I beat her, I believe, 7-0. And then in my final, I lost to Margot Cicerelli by an advantage. And she's another one of the girls up and coming. She competes for AOJ now with the Mendez brothers. But again, a match that I would love to have again. I'd love to have a rematch. But that approach was every time I was done a match, I would go back to the warm-up area and I would do a round, another 5 or 6 minute round. And then I'd have like a 1 or 2 minute break, and then I'd have another round. So it's like I was doing an open mat or something.
How hard are you going in those rounds, by the way, those warm-up rounds? Are you like percentage wise, how hard are you guys going?
I think at that time I was going somewhere between like 75-85%.
Oh, wow.
Like fairly hard. Like
Okay.
I wanted to be sharp on submissions, or I wanted to be sharp on sweeps. I wanted somebody to give me like 100% pressure trying to pass my guard to know that I could retain it. So, but again, like that was an approach that I took. And then I went into another tournament and I took a completely different approach. I did like a run to kind of warm up, just listen to like relaxing music on another day. So every single time I think I've done something a little bit different, and it's really just based on being in tune with where I am.
Have you, and I had asked you before in terms of a sports psychologist, have you ever sought out a sports psychologist?
I haven't.
Okay.
There's a girl named Erin Hurl, and I don't know if you say the E at the end, to be honest, but her name is Erin.
Okay.
And she is a CEO of a company called Submit to Stigma.
Okay.
So like her mission is to really like I believe help people who have mental illnesses in the sport. And she's awesome. She was a very high level competitor herself, competed in the black belt division, medaled many times. I believe she won worlds as a brown belt. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure she did.
Is she Canadian?
She's American, but she's
Okay.
married to a Canadian.
Okay.
So she's living in, I believe, Niagara Falls. And so anyways, I ran into her this weekend, and I was telling her a bit about my injury and just kind of like having a couple hiccups before I got back on track. She goes, "Hey, you've been killing it." And I'm like, "Well, I had a small hiccup." And she's like, "Well, I didn't even notice that happened because you just, so nice to hear that. But also, she said, hey, if you're ever thinking about like wanting someone to help like coach you through some of this, like some of the mental battles, like feel free to reach out, and I'd be happy to be there.
That's
So that's
awesome.
pretty cool.
Yeah, that's cool. I think that the topic of, there's a huge stigma around mental health in general in everyday civilian life, and that also applies to athletes as well, and high level elite performers, competitors like yourself, and everyday, and everyone else. And I think it's completely okay to talk about these issues. I think society, culturally, we're becoming more open to talk about our how we're feeling and so on. And I think it's integral for athletes, especially people who are competing at such high levels like yourself, because at the end of the day, it's almost like the X factor is what's happening up here, how one is feeling, and if they feel supported, right? If they have that good support system around them, of course, a team and so on, a coach that can kind of read the signs and all that. There's a bunch of literature on that, but I want to, I appreciate this. This has been a very interesting conversation. I don't want to take up too much more of your time. I have a few more questions. I want to go back to Warsaw, Poland for that final match against Sandra. She's, of course, a local competitor. She's a hometown person in Warsaw, and the crowd, I heard, was obviously on her side. And in your corner, you had Team Canada cheering for you and supporting you. Lead us through this match here, because I saw just the last clip and a very emotional moment. When I saw that, I was like, wow. I was like, damn, this is going to be an interesting interview. So if you could set it up for us, lead us through the final for the gold and what happened afterwards.
Okay, so I studied her semifinal match where she fought the Lithuanian girl that I fought the day before. And from studying the two different sides of the brackets and seeing how dominant she was, I was like, oh, I'm going to fight the Lithuanian girl in the final for sure. And then when I saw what happened and how the Lithuanian girl lost to the Polish girl, I was like, okay, well, I can't make the same mistake that she did. And what she did was she kept attacking, like her arm bars are like, without a doubt, very good. She's hitting them on people in the UFC. She's hitting them on people in this tournament, like flying arm bars. Some of these people are getting submitted in like 10 seconds. So she really, she has it down to a science. And what happened was the Polish girl was so tight in like keeping her arms in that she wasn't able to actually open up the submission. So anytime she'd take top position in an armbar, she wouldn't really be taking top position and get a sweep, right? So the Polish girl was able to win on points simply because Julia was not able to finish the armbar, number one, and like to be satisfied with like positional dominance, because sometimes you get so focused on getting the submission that you forget that the whole point is of jiu-jitsu or grappling is essentially progression. So if there's no positional progression, there's no points. So if you go for a submission and you miss it, well, then there's nothing, right? Then you're kind of back at square one. So I knew that if I was going to fight the Polish girl, like, again, one of my favorite submissions, we can say it's an armbar as well. Another one of the higher percentage things that I do, like mostly the things I do are joint locks. I don't get a lot of chokes, probably because my hands are tiny. My thumbs hurt. But I knew that if I got her in a submission, I would need to use a submission to sweep to get on top. So when I started the fight with her, I knew I was going to pull once I felt comfortable. So once I pulled, I got to a good guard, and then I felt like she was going to really try to just like hunker down and hold on. And I wasn't going to rely on any of these passivity calls, because, I don't want to win that way. I want to win doing my thing. And I felt as if like the more she commit to staying there, the more she opened up like off balances, because her head would be too far forward, or I'd break grips and she'd have to like move around and open up an angle for me. So I was able to catch her in a triangle, and I felt like it was pretty tight. And then as I was in the triangle, I was moving around. I really like, again, I really hit the angle, and I'm like, man, this girl is not going to tap. They're like, she is not going to tap.
Mm.
And I could hear her almost snoring in the
Wow.
triangle.
Wow.
And so I looked to the ref and I'm like, she's out. And then
Wow.
he went and like touched her. And then she moved. So as soon as she moved, he's like, no, she's fine.
Yeah.
And then I felt her body like go limp again. And I'm like, I don't know if she's like going out in stages or what, but I'm
Right.
looking at him like, I'm pretty sure she's sleeping. But the rule is you don't stop until the ref says so.
Right.
So I underhooked the leg. I came up to the mounted triangle. So I ended up getting the sweep from there. And in the mounted triangle, it's really easy to pry the arm and attack the arm bar. So I extended the arm. I got the triangle from the mounted. I got the arm bar from the mounted triangle, which is the exact same way I finished the girl, I believe, from the USA. I finished that really late. But to be able to finish the final like that dominantly, that quickly, I believe it was like 2 minutes or so, 2.5 minutes max. And I was like, man, like a weight has been lifted. Like I'm back to that person that I know I'm able to be. Like my standards for myself are very high, and it's hard to not set your expectation or your bar too high and disappoint yourself. But when you are like when you prove to yourself, yes, I am back where I need to be, that was awesome. And like I said, it was a roller coaster for me. This injury has really challenged me to be positive and take what I can from every session, and just be grateful for everything.
It's incredible. It's incredible that you won gold with that injury. I think it says a lot about your determination and your willingness to commit and go all the way and to prove it to yourself, but also to prove it to the world, because you're competing at the UWW Grappling World Championship and you won there. And I saw the clip where at the end, after you submitted your opponent, it was a very emotional moment. Is that correct?
Yeah. Like it wasn't like a happy like woo. It was like I did it, and then I just like was overwhelmed, just like tears welled up, like it's like the stress that I had from all of the negative, I wouldn't even say negative self-talk, but negative external talk. Like it's hard to not let what people say affect you, right? And when I got injured again, like I had just left another team, and I was hearing a lot of people say, oh, she deserves it, oh, there goes her career, oh, she's out for 2 years, that's what she gets. And like and I'm like, what did I ever do to these people? I thought I was their friend, and then they're just saying all this BS about me. And it's hard to not let that bother you. It's hard to not let that come inside. And then I was just like, man, like I did this for me, and like I am a good person, and I can be, I can be the best. And I don't know. I still don't have words to describe like how good it felt to overcome a lot of that. And like it's hard, like I said, it's so hard to not let what people say affect you, and it's so hard to not let what you have going on up here, like you can't talk badly about yourself to yourself, because your mind will like absorb that. So
Absolutely, yeah. And we see in the clip, in the video clip that I saw, that you got to hold the Canadian flag. Obviously, you're representing Team Canada, and you got to do the winner's lap or some sort, like where you run, you run around. How did that feel? What was that moment like? Because I mean, not many people, competitors alone, get to experience that. And what was the energy like in Warsaw when you did that, and you had your teammates there from Team Canada? It's a unique moment, is it not?
Yeah, it was definitely unique. And I mean, I feel like I really shared like that overcoming journey with Trika, because she has been there for me since like, well, during the pandemic, like we met and we started training together. And then when we opened our school in Oshawa, she became one of our students. But like she's been there with me through everything, and I've talked to her about like every thought, every moment, and every like I guess painful experience I had been through. And through the day, like I'd be telling her like how I was feeling and what was going on in my mind, what was going on in my stomach. And like to just have that moment, like I think that like to have somebody there with you that understood everything that you had been through, like it was very powerful. Like I was so grateful to have her there. The flag was cool, but sharing the moment with her specifically, um, just knowing like, man, like we did this. It wasn't just me, right?
Right.
Like she's there for it. Like if we roll if we have 10 rolls a night in a training session, I might roll 5 times with her. Like that, we did it, you know?
Mm-hmm. For sure.
So
And it's funny because when I saw that that Team Canada, because I only found out afterwards that you know Canada was sending a team, blah blah blah, and then I saw the results and the pictures. I remember reaching out to Aiden and asking him about it, and because I wanted to know more. And long story short, when I spoke with him, he was telling me a lot about you and your performance, and he said something along the lines of like he would bet his house that you would make the podium and tear up the place at the world and make a big statement and represent Canada at this very prestigious tournament. I have 2 more questions for you, or 3 if you don't mind. I know we're talking a lot here. There's this conversation there, we're touching on a lot of subjects, and some stuff I was just generally unaware of, quite frankly. But I want to know, and I asked this question because a lot of people talk about the philosophical insights of jiu-jitsu. I know that's a loaded statement, but bear with me here. It seems that jiu-jitsu is a sport where you're constantly in battle, not with just your opponent, but with yourself. We can say that about other sports as well, but we're talking jiu-jitsu here. Can you share some philosophical insights or perspectives that you've gained from your time training and competing? How has it shaped your view of the world? How has jiu-jitsu shaped your view of the world?
I think your weaknesses in training are the same weaknesses you have as a human.
Wow.
Um, I think you can put it simply. I think like the mistakes you make or the actions that you take or don't take, they reflect on who you are as a person outside of the mats.
Yeah, that's incredible. I feel like we need to like redo this interview and just start with that as the main topic, because that's you just dropped something really fascinating that's going to make me think a bit more about that. Do you want to elaborate some more? I'm sure people watching this are blown away by that statement.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like you can see how people are like, let's say for example, somebody who's not really committed to their work, they do like a half-ass effort, um they show up late and so on, and then you see them in their training and they don't really try that hard. They give up on things too easy. They don't like put in the fight to stay on top if they're getting swept when they could. They just let it go. um and it's kind of a form, I would say, like that's something like it's kind of a way for you to like accept, like, oh well, I'm giving myself an excuse to lose. Oh, I'm just going to accept this sweep. Or oh, it's not that big of a deal for me to finish this report. Or it's not that big of a deal for me to get this job. Or and for me, like I'm a very tenacious person, and I've always worked hard to be, I would say, the best at certain things. I've always been competitive since like I was in the grade 1 spelling bee. I had these 2 twins. I used to try to beat them for better marks. So, I mean, it's literally been since then. So my drive towards jujitsu has been, it's relatively the same towards like everything else I do. I wanted to have a school. So my husband and I opened a school, but I didn't want to just have like a school that did okay. I wanted to have a really good school with a lot of students. I wanted to like have my first year be like blown out of the water, out of the red, into the green, travel the world and so on. And so being that way, I think it carries on into like other parts of my life. So I'm able to be successful elsewhere. I have a friend, she's younger. She just started training jiu-jitsu a little bit more often in the summer because she came back from McGill, and she started training like 4 or 5 times a day. And I'm like, man, what the heck did this girl do before? She must have been so bored. But then, like she's at McGill and she's doing her degrees, like a degree at McGill, and then she's going to Dalhousie to do her grad school. And then I'm thinking to myself, like, of course this girl's going to train jiu-jitsu 4 days a week because look at the effort that she puts in there. And those are like positive ways to look at it. I have a friend and she's very analytical. And because she's very analytical, she can pick apart things and be very, very, very technical to a fault, right? Where if it's not perfect, she might not be able to execute it. And it's probably the same way that she performs her work, right? Like she's very analytical and she needs it to be perfect. And if you're like, so let's say you're working in tech, sometimes like coding something properly or making it look the right way or lining up perfectly is an important thing. Mm-hmm. So in jiu-jitsu, like it's very transferable to the way you act.
In terms of motivation and competition, I know you've kind of answered it, but I just want to follow up and ask, like, what you've made the podium, you're a world champion, and you have a successful competitive grappling career. Why do you still fight and compete? What drives you now? You're also a black belt. You've got your gym. What keeps the fire burning for competition? And I ask that because you've won, right? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like you've won a few times, more than a few times. What keeps you? What keeps that desire going for competition?
I'm not satisfied yet.
Okay. Wow.
It's fulfilling to do what we do. It's fulfilling to be on the journey. I don't think winning is fulfilling. I think winning is like if you consider winning part of the journey, then it's going to be fulfilling along the way. But I don't feel whole because I win. It's cool, but like the next day you go back to the gym and you're training and you're working on your mistakes. So it's a very short-lived celebration, I would say. Like people say congrats. And for me, it's like, okay, like that was like a week ago, guys, like let's move on. So, and that's not to say that I'm not grateful for the things that I experienced, but I genuinely enjoy the process.
Moving on to the next topic here, the Canadian National Grappling Championships, Gi and Nogi, will be held on June 8th at the EY Center in Ottawa, Ontario. This is the qualifier for the 2024 UWW Grappling World Championships. How would you encourage and compel the best Canadian no-gi and gi grapplers to compete at this tournament so that they can represent Team Canada and compete against the best in the world? How would you compel them to show up and compete at this qualifier?
Going there and winning is your opportunity to go to the Worlds and be treated like an Olympic athlete. And if everybody's goal in most sports is to reach the highest level that there is, then with UWW, that this is the highest level for them. This is the Worlds. The only other thing would be if grappling became an Olympic sport, and like some people, like we can argue that could be good or bad for the sport, but arguments aside, doesn't everybody want to go like full ride to be treated like a world-class athlete with the opportunity to win Worlds? And man, like if you asked me to pick a handful of people from Canada, girls, even 58 kilo, 64 kilo, 70 kilo, I could probably name off a whole bunch of girls and we could probably make the whole podium.
Wow. Are you, I'm not going to ask you to drop some names. Maybe you want to, no, just kidding. But I believe you that the women are certainly incredible when it comes to combat sports. We see that actually in other Olympic core sports, such as judo in Canada is very strong. The women are always making the podium at significant tournaments and so on, even at the World and the Olympics. We see that as well in boxing and wrestling, of course. And women are certainly leading the charge when it comes to combat sports in Canada. And I say that respectfully, in regards to male athletes. What I mean but to say is that women are actually going to these tournaments and making the podium. And I think making the podium is the big statement here. And in regards to the UWW World Championships, the reason why I asked that question is I imagine there's so much talent in grappling in Canada, be it gi or no gi, and I think it's important, for this tournament to send the best, the best competitors out there. It's in the best interest, I think, of Canadian Jiu-Jitsu to have the best represent. What sort of advice, sorry, I'm putting you on the spotlight here. You don't have to answer this, but what sort of advice would you give the organizer of this qualifier, Aiden Mansour, in terms of galvanizing the entire Canadian Jiu-Jitsu community to send their best to the qualifier so Canada can storm the podium and make a statement globally?
I think the best way to put it, and I'm going to talk about like the different weight categories quickly for a second, and just
Sure.
because they vary from being like extremely light to being extremely heavy. I know that, in wrestling, in UWW actual wrestling, like people only wrestle in their weight category. And so for this trip, we had to win the absolute division, which was like all weight categories combined. I think that if the organizer were to allocate the funding to each athlete who wins their respective weight division, even if it's like you're only getting, like, let's say you're able to cover a third of the cost or half of the cost to each of the athletes instead of a full ride for 4 athletes. I think that would entice people to come more because they know that they're going to get like a bursary for like $500 to go to Poland, and it's going to cost them $2,000 or it's going to cost them $1,500, whatever it is. I think that taking the absolute component out and having a qualifier for each weight division, it's going to draw more people. And I would say if there was like a junior category for like U18 or U21, it would even draw like tons of kids, tons of parents. Sent a bunch of their kids to Kazakhstan this year for JJAF for juniors, U18, U21. And I think that if grappling did the same, the Canadian Combat Alliance did the same thing, they would, especially for the seniors, and then the juniors, if you qualify, you're able to go, you just have to pay your own ride. That definitely opens up the doors for more opportunities for more people to want to compete because they get to represent Team Canada.
And overall, what was the vibe like with the other teammates on the team? Because I think they're
awesome. We never met them before,
okay.
Other than Aiden, like the guys from Montreal. We'd never met them before, but they were pretty cool. They were funny. They were quiet at first, but after everybody competed, everybody loosened up a little bit. Right
on. So I have 2 more questions for you. I really appreciate your time and patience. I know I'm going past the 60 minutes I initially said I would need. I have 2. First question is the future of Jiu-Jitsu. Looking at the evolution of Jiu-Jitsu, where do you see the sport heading in the next decade? Do you foresee any innovations or shifts in the competitive landscape? And how are you preparing yourself to adapt and excel in the changing environment? I ask you this as a competitor, but also as a coach, because we know this sport obviously is red hot here in Canada. We see competitors as young as 5 to as old as 55 competing out there. So what are you looking for in the next decade as far as trends for the sport of jiu-jitsu, gi or no gi?
I think we're going to see like the Sidney Crosbys and like the Connor McDavids of NHL, the kids who started when they were very young. And then they come up and they become these phenoms that people are like salivating over signing. I think we're going to start seeing that with the kids who start coming up, as long as we can retain them and make it fun and keep it fun and keep the parents from putting too much pressure on them. I think that we're really going to see a shift in that young generation really taking over. So as long as we are kind of like raising our youth or like bringing up our white belts to be gray belts or white belts to be blue belts, as long as we are nurturing that next era, we're going to see things get a lot more competitive. And I think that for kids especially, this is going to go very far. And as far as scholarships and things like that go, I know that one university in California has started scholarships for jiu-jitsu.
Wow.
So that could be something for grappling or jiu-jitsu that would expand in the future if it became more regulated within school systems. So that could be something that we see within the next 10 years.
How do you find in terms of on the media side? That's a great answer, by the way. But I want to know in terms of recognition amongst the media, is the media doing enough, be it local, indie, or whatever established media, doing enough to promote the sport, do you find, or recognize athletes for their achievements?
I think we have to reach out to the media in order to get them to notice or know what we're doing. The Minister of sport tourism and culture, Neil, I think Lumsden is his name, from Ontario. I reached out to him personally last year, sent him the names of all the people who competed and won when we were in Abu Dhabi, and he his team made an Instagram post about us in the write-up, which was nice. But I feel like there isn't a lot of coverage overall. But luckily for me, my dad, he works closely with different politicians. And I actually got a call from Doug Ford to congratulate me.
Wow.
A couple weeks ago. So that was really cool.
That's awesome.
Everybody, like, if you hate him, I don't care. It's all good. It was really cool. His daughter competes in fitness. She's a IFBB fitness pro.
Okay.
So I know that he does have an appreciation for sports and for like the dedication and discipline that it takes, because he's seen his daughter do it. So yeah, that was really cool. It was really cool to have that. I also
saw a clip. I saw a clip of your MP from a few years ago reading your name in the house, congratulating you. Did you ever see that clip? I think it was.
Yeah, I did. I think that was when I was a brand new white belt. I had won the novice worlds at IBJJF. Yeah, so I think that's when it was. But yeah, that was very cool too. Luckily for me, my dad is always my dad's my biggest fan. Okay. So he's always pushing for me, and all of his contacts that he has, like, he's always bragging, I guess. But well,
I think people have to, right, in order to promote the sport, and if it's family, friends, whatever. I think it's in the best interest of the sport of jiu-jitsu is, have more recognition and more appreciation, not just from like the established core people, people who are on the mass training, but outside stakeholders and, potential new sponsors, potential, what I'm saying? Like people
absolutely, especially potential new sponsors, because you're talking about people who are not just people who own gi companies. You're talking about sponsors who are people who might be like insurance companies or, anybody really. Absolutely.
Last question for you. You coach, obviously you coach and you teach kids as well. What have kids taught you about the sport that's blown your mind away? What have they kind of like reminded you or taught you in regards to jiu-jitsu that you had forgotten maybe, or you had never considered before?
I think that kids are sponges. So you can take a kid who can barely walk straight, because he's so uncoordinated and unathletic, and you can teach him how to be athletic. You can't teach people how to work hard. That's something that you either kind of do or you don't. You can push them, but you can't force them to want it. But these kids, to see them change into a completely different person, that's pretty incredible.
Absolutely. Janine, thank you very much for your time, and congratulations on winning not just the gold medal, not just the bronze medal, but also the gold medal at the World. When's your next competition?
I'm aiming for ADCC trials in October, and that's in New Jersey.
Okay. Wow. And overall, are you feeling ready? Are you feeling pumped?
I'm getting there.
Right on.
One day at a time.
Totally. Thank you very much for your time. Have a good evening.
You too.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.